Just, I can remember that. I remember his jaws were hanging down. He had those little flappy jaws hanging down. And as a kid, you remember little things like that. But he walked up and he says, "How are you, young man?" And shook my hand. So that's the first president. The second president that I met was, uh, would have been Ronald Reagan. And actually, I was in the Army when Ronald Reagan was on his second term, and he actually came to one of the forts that I was at and spoke, and we were young soldiers standing there in a line, and he came by again, and a handshake thing. Pretty cool, pretty cool. But again, it's a lot of other people met him. Got to meet George Bush's father. That was kind of cool. But I got to also meet the first lady. So, and both of them are no longer with us. But I got to meet George and Barbara Bush, and it was over in Saudi Arabia in 1990. So it was right before we kicked off. I think it was during Thanksgiving of 1990, and I was selected to go and actually sit down and have Thanksgiving, a meal with them. And that was really cool because we all sat around this table kind of like we are now. And, but it was physical. It was there. It was live. It was, but I was impressed by his wife. And I'm just going to say that she was she was trying to mother us. It was one of those, you could tell that she was, troubled by all of us being there. And, and of course with George Bush Sr. being a pilot in World War II, actually being shot down, by the way, and during World War II, she had some intimate thoughts about war. And I remember that. So it was very good. And then, of course, I never got to shake hands with Bill Clinton, but I was in the same room where he spoke right before I was in recruiting command at the time. So this would have been like 1997, 98 time period. And then Barack Obama came in, and so during his second tenure, I had retired. Or no, his first tenure, I had retired. And but I didn't meet him until after I was already retired. So this would have been during his second stint as president. Funny guy. Seemed more like a comedian than a president to me. Again, a situation where we were at a dinner. It was about veterans. It was about actually the impact of energy security on America. And he spoke with us and took our questions and seemed cordial enough. But George W. Bush, the son of Bush Sr., that some people may not like, was actually the most personable and friendliest president I've ever met in my life. And let me tell you, that meeting was very special because I had written a letter after coming back, and I was in and out of the hospital. I mean, this would have been 2005. And I wrote a letter, to the president, and said that I was very proud to be a soldier and do my duty. It was at the time when everybody was protesting about the war in Iraq, and they said some not so nice things about the soldiers too. So let's not forget that our country didn't learn from the Vietnam nonsense, of people, trying to shame the service members. That went on during that war as well, and I caught some of that. And it inspired me to write a letter to the president and explain to them that, this was an honorable thing. And we really did free the Iraqi people. Whether anybody wants to say, take out the weapons of mass destruction out of it, The fact is there were two things that we did. We killed a whole lot of bad guys that we didn't have to kill in the streets of America. So let me just tell you that's fact. And the other thing that we did is we provided the Iraqi people with a government that is still functional today. So whether you want to believe it or not, we won that war. We accomplished our mission. We removed Saddam Hussein from power. We assured that there was no weapons of mass destruction that were there. And we totally annihilated, terrorism all over the streets of Iraq. And people will argue about that. But that's just the truth. I was there. Most of the people that gripe and complain about it and cry the loudest, they've never even left the comforts of their damn living room, let alone go and fight in a place like that. So I wrote that letter. George W. Bush responded and invited me to Morgantown to meet with him. And he actually mentioned me in his 4th of July speech on July the 4th, 2005. And I actually told about the letter that I wrote. And we were lining up. I thought, okay, great. I'm going to get to shake his hand like everybody else. And there was a lot of people there. And a Secret Service agent came up to me and says, all of you will stay here. Says, at that time, I was Lieutenant McCormick. Says, Lieutenant McCormick, I want you to come back here. The president wants to meet you. And I went into a room where there was just me, him, and a Secret Service agent. And he walked in and took pictures and sat down with me. And we talked about the war in Iraq. He was genuinely interested. Now, I got married. Let's see, that'd have been July, November. I got married. And he sent my wife and I, not only sent us a card from the president, but sent us a daggone wedding gift. So understand, I like G.W. Bush. I did, and I still do. And I thought he was the most personable president that I got to meet. Then later on, after that, and I got that kind of out of chronological order there, but anyways, I met Barack Obama. I was telling you about that. Not really impressed, but let's move on to meeting Donald Trump. Meeting Donald Trump in 2016 at New Hampshire first, when he was a candidate. And everyone was laughing and saying, oh man, this guy will never be elected president. Well, I sent a message to a friend of mine. I said, look, I got the Art of the Deal book. I said, I'm going to get him to sign this book. And it was actually my son's book. And my son said, Donald Trump's going to be elected as president. And, I was like, well, I said, it's a kind of a crowded race. So there's a lot of people there. I said, but we'll find out. And so I went there. And once I met the man and we started talking about energy, this was another guy, very personable, big man, but I had no problem sitting down and talking to you and going over everything. Signed the book, The Art of the Deal. Okay. Was extremely friendly, was extremely, just a fun guy, just a super fun. And I think that, for me anyways, it was a chance to get to see him before he really got into, being the president and talking about things like energy security and national security, which is what I was working on. And, he was just a friendly guy, man. I'm telling you, I'm glad that he was our president. He'll most likely be our president again. So, and I got a leg up. And I met Joe Biden as well. And I met Joe Biden not too long ago when I was the national commander for the Military Order of the Purple Heart. And there were two national commanders that came out and publicly admonished the administration for their mishandling of the Afghanistan withdrawal. It was a disgrace, and it still is a disgrace. And that was myself and a guy named Joe Shinelli with AMVETS. So understand that when we went out and did that on Fox News, you didn't see anybody else do it. And they weren't coming out because they were terrified, because, but our members were absolutely livid. Uh, absolutely livid. Absolutely livid. And I think it was important for us, as an organization, as leaders, and as veterans ourselves, that we had to say something. And the problem with that whole thing is that Biden and that whole, crew of misfits that he's got in there, they really are dysfunctional in so many ways. So I got to meet him. I did not want my picture with him, so I did not get my picture with him. He did give me a coin. I do have a few president's coins, but he asked me a question and I gave him an answer. And I told him exactly how we felt about the Afghanistan situation and exactly how we feel about the weakening of our military with policies. And he said, no, you don't understand. This is going to strengthen us. It doesn't strengthen us. When you have a commander that is now doesn't know, am I going to be a woman or a man? If you can't make that decision, then how on God's green earth can you make a decision to go take an objective? You can't, because you're too confused with that one basic thing. So it's hard for you to be able to, to make decisions. And not only that, there's a mental crisis issue there. It's just anyways. It wasn't a great meeting with Joe Biden. I'll just tell you that. And look, here's the deal. People say, man, I can't believe what you, and had other, but Joe Shinelli and I didn't give it crap, man. I mean, we're going to tell the guy the truth. Look, he works for us. All these elected officials, they work for us. We don't work for them. And so we've got to get to the point to where we stop kneeling down and kissing the ring of these people, because that's not what we're supposed to do. Respect is earned. It's not just given. We respected the position, always called him Mr. President, never yelled out, never cursed, never spoke out a term. But we also didn't back down on our position and our stance on this thing. And I think that's what Americans need to do now. Hold your dang elected officials accountable. Stop looking at them as rock stars. You got rock stars living in your neighborhoods all around you. They're your veterans that stood up and support and defended the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign or domestic. Okay, we took an oath and we keep that oath. There are some presidents that I met, Reagan, and it's like I said, even Richard Nixon, Reagan, George W. Bush 1, 2, their wives, both of the wives of both George Bushes that were president, very wonderful, personable ladies that represented the office of First Lady very well, and then there are some that, did not impress me. But look, Bill Clinton impressed me as a pretty smart guy. He's a Rhodes Scholar. He impressed me as that. So it's not a Democrat-Republican thing for me. It was a, what are you doing? Not what you're telling everybody you're doing, but what are you actually doing? And then can you sit down across from John Q. Public or Jane Q. Public, people that, couldn't even, we couldn't afford to, to buy a back seat at one of the ball games that they go to sometimes. But will you be able to sit down and talk with us? Because we're actually the people that you're working for. And that's the citizens of this country. And some of them really demonstrate. I mean, look, George Bush sent us a wedding gift. A wedding gift. How many people can say, I got a wedding gift from the president? My wife can tell you it's in her little chest of collectibles from our wedding. I mean, she can tell you exactly what we got. Yeah, it's crazy. But
James,
anyways, there you go.
James,
Yes, sir.
please keep that thought. I'm stunned. You're talking secrets from the inside that I didn't even know, and I know you well. If you have time, this is all your schedule, sir. You're telling my listeners and my readers, you're telling that you looked Joe Biden in the eyes and had a discussion with him.
100%. 100%.
Okay.
Yes.
And secondly, put this in your back pocket for before you sign off, James. I need you to tell my listeners, my viewers, my readers about the story of Trump inviting you to New Hampshire and giving you a tie. Okay, but let's start with Biden. I'd like you to start with Biden, and to our listeners, we can't get a straight story, James, from the media. Okay, you looked him in the eye. You take as long as you want till you want to sign off, and you tell the listeners your take on Joe Biden, sir.
Look, he's way out of his league. I don't think Joe Biden was even a very good congressman. I think he had a good talk and a good game. Obviously, one of his sons was a soldier and was an honorable man, Bronze Star recipient, captain, died of cancer. Tragedy. Another son, Hunter, wasn't in the Navy very long, got kicked out for drugs. Hey, look, I'm not making this stuff up, but in spite of all of that, we can look beyond all that, because some people have kids that don't grow up so well and all those. But it's his decision making that is flawed, and the fact that he is struggling to be able to get around. So all of this stuff that you hear about him, kind of getting lost and shook up, I mean, true. He has a couple of handlers that's with him at all times, and they won't let him, get into a deep conversation. As a matter of fact, they were trying to interrupt in our conversation. And I was reminding them as well as him, look, I'm having a talk with the president about something that's very serious. Like, you work for me. I don't work for you. My taxes pay you. You don't pay me. I go out and work my ass off every day to make my living and to pay the taxes that pay you, or to cover your debt, because that's essentially all your taxes are doing right now, is to cover the debt. But the problem with Joe Biden is not just him, it's his appointees. He appointed people based on, a sexual orientation, or it meets some kind of a progressive, image. What about just being qualified for the job? Where's it at? So look, and if anybody would like for me to do it, I tell you what, I'd be happy to go talk to Joe Biden again and tell him word for word exactly what I said again and again and again, just because. And we got to stop being afraid to tell these people the dang truth. When you're failing, you're screwing up, look, tell them, let them know. I mean, it's hurting the whole country. I mean, look, we had a robust economy when he took over, no doubt. Gas was under $2 a gallon. Go look and see how much it costs now. And I know there's some people mad about Donald Trump. Oh, he was so mean. His tweets were so bad. He was so rude, and he was all these things. I mean, he was rough around the edges, but he appointed decent people to do things. I think some of them let him down, in the last days. I do believe that. Look, Donald Trump was very personable and good to me, and came up to me and said, hey, as we were talking, and I went to New Hampshire, met with him. Like I said, it wasn't it wasn't just he's in a room full of people. It's a one-on-one conversation with Donald J. Trump. So while a lot of people worship him and love him and care about him, and that's a good thing, you should love him and care about him. I've really sat down and talked to the man, and I'll tell you something else. I've got some of his ties. Okay. So he gave me, he says, how many sons do you have? And I told him, I've got 5 sons, So I ended up getting 7 ties, Craig. Craig, I told you I had 6, but it's actually, I counted them. I got 7 ties. Of course, my sons all got one of the ties, as well. All different colors, all different styles. And I wear my Donald Trump tie. I got a blue one and I got a red one, and I enjoy it. My one son, he got a beautiful gold tie. It says Donald Trump on the back of it. I mean, come on, man. I mean, you know, beautiful gifts, wonderful man, good conversation. The whole thing about energy security is national security, that came from Vets for Vet Leadership. I'm sorry, Vets for Energy, which was a group that I was working on. And that's how I went and met, Donald J. Trump, the president of the United States, before he became president. Matter of fact, guys and gals, when he had his inauguration, you couldn't get up there. Okay. But I got this beautiful box in the mail. And I didn't tell you this, Greg, that had a wonderful bottle of rye in it, rye whiskey. And it had a hat and a coin and a personal letter from Donald J. Trump. Now, how many people have that? Now, I will tell you that whenever Joe Biden was elected, I had to drink that whole damn bottle of rye, okay, to just get over this whole thing.
Captain, did you say rye? You said rye. Normally only Canadians talk about rye. Yeah. Okay. And Captain, I'll let you know a secret. I drank a bunch of rye in my young days, Captain.
Well, there you go. Beautiful bottle of rye. Still got the bottle, still got the box and all of that stuff. But
hold
yes.
that thought, Captain. Seriously. We're going to do entire shows just on these stories. They are absolutely amazing. And we're just getting the tip of the iceberg here. I know how my listeners and readers think, and so do you, Val, right? I got a really smart demographic of people. And what they're going to ask is this. They're going to ask. Some are going to ask if Donald Trump is elected president again. I've already published when he is going to be the 47th president of the United States. He's going to be my code name for Donald Trump, which you guys know, is 4547. Okay, and I've published it before, so I'm not shy of saying it. My question, and my readers, my listeners' question to you, Captain, is this: I'm just going to go out on a limb here, okay, and say that you might be voting for Donald Trump if he's the candidate, okay, for the Republican candidate for president, November 8th, 2024. Show up, everybody. Show up and vote, okay? But assuming that you might be voting for